Hey everybody, just wanted to let you know that this episode of Tabletop Babble is brought to you by Genuine Fantasy Press. Genuine Fantasy Press is giving away a free version of their 125-page player supplement for 5th edition D&D, The Compendium of Forgotten Secrets Awakening. You can get it over at genuinefantasypress.com. This includes all of the player content from an upcoming hardcover release they have. It contains 34 new subclasses, 17 of which are new Warlock patrons and familiars, over 175 new spells and invocations, 10 new races, and a dozen campaign hooks. The full cover version, which you can pre-order now, is 190 pages of new content. The book is designed to work with both classic and homebrew settings and gives you new ideas for your world and game. It's got beautiful, 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 beautiful full-color art. The cover is one of the most evocative I've ever seen in my life, and it is available internationally in hardcover on Amazon. Genuine Fantasy Press, inspiring adventure. This is Tabletop Babble. I'm James Introcaso. Today on the show, we are talking about Savage Worlds with the creators of Crystal Heart, which is a Savage World games that is totally unique and awesome and amazing and is kickstarting right now. So go search for Crystal Heart on Kickstarter so you can follow along with us. This is a seriously cool world and I cannot wait to share it with you. So here's my interview with them. All right, everybody, now I am here with two wonderful people in the world of RPGs. I am super excited to share them with you. So why don't we quickly go around the table, tell me who you are and what you do in the world of tabletop role-playing games. And Aviv, let's start with you.
Hi, I'm Aviv Or. I'm a freelance illustrator working mainly for tabletop games, both board games and role-playing games. I've been drawing for years. And I've been playing for years, and it's so cool to mix the two together. We're here, or I'm here mainly because I also draw the up to 4 players webcomic, specifically the Crystal Heart storyline that we're doing now.
Excellent. Well, it's awesome to have you here. I've been reading over the webcomic, the Crystal Heart storyline, and it's really fun, and it's very, very well illustrated. Like, really great work. I love it so much, so...
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And Eran, who are you and what do you do in the world of tabletop role-playing games?
Hello, I am Eran, and my accent is far worse than Aviv's, so if anything that I say is unclear, I will repeat it slower. I have been working in the world of board games and tabletops since around 2005. I've been translating them to Hebrew. I was behind the translation for most of the D&D books, Exalted, Pathfinder, stuff like that. And then we switched to indie things, Dungeon Worlds, and now Masks being translated. I'm not behind Masks. I just want to know that people know that Masks is being translated to Hebrew. It's brilliant. Currently, I am the editor for City of Mist. It's a really big RPG. It's really, really thick, which means I might not be a really good editor, but but they've been saying good things about the book, so I don't know. And now I'm here specifically because I'm also the writer for Up to 4 Players, and now the upcoming setting book for Savage Worlds that translates the world of Crystal Heart into a playable game.
Yeah, so this is really cool. I love the story of Crystal Heart, and I'm wondering if you could delve into that a little bit and sort of the genesis for the idea. What is the world of Crystal Heart, and where did the idea come from?
There's the short version and the long version. The short one is, we've been doing a webcomic about mostly board games for a year and a half, and we decided we want to move to the hobby that we love more than anything, role-playing games. And when we did that, we had to decide on a specific system and a specific setting they will be playing. And then we decided on Savage Worlds and Crystal Heart. Now, Crystal Heart already existed because we actually played it about 15 years ago for a little-known system called Big Eyes, Small Mouth. It was an anime-inspired system. It doesn't exist anymore. And it was pretty good. And we were watching Naruto at the time. And we really wanted something that would allow us to do insane, amazing, awesome, very colorful combats and action scenes and the like. So we sat down and I came with an idea and I told the party, well, not yet a party, just a group of players ready to engage in some world building. I have an idea. People have stones instead of hearts. Why? Because there's a song in Hebrew that has this thing in it, and I liked it. Let's turn this into an adventure world or something. And then for like 3 or 4 hours, we sat and created this world by and adding all sorts of things that we all liked. Okay, I want Indiana Jones sort of thing. Then we'll have to delve into deep tombs and stuff to find treasure. But what treasure are we looking for? What is the thing that we want? Well, money is boring. How about crystals that give you superpowers? Yes. But we want this to be interesting in a role-playing sort of way. How about they also change your personality when you use them? Yes. And also we are agents of this organization, and the organization is mysterious, and we don't really know a lot about the organization and what they want. Oh, awesome. Yes. And that's how the world was created. Now it's a playable world for everyone and not just some notes in our mind. And actually it's mostly thanks to the webcomic, because you have to sit down and create some stuff. More NPCs, places, things to show on the webcomic.
Yeah. Like when I sit to draw the Sin flying castle, for example, I have to ask Eran, what is in it? How does it look? What is it? Big? Is it small? How do they get in and out of it? And that forces us to make decisions about the world and develop it as a setting.
Because as a GM, I didn't care about any of these things.
One of the things that I truly love is that, so you had this game that you were playing sort of at your home table, and then it became years later a webcomic, and everybody is reading now about the world, and now it's becoming a role-playing game we all can consume, right? It's sort of this snake eating its tail kind of story that you have just about the production of the role-playing game that I really, really like. So when you decided, hey, I want to do a role-playing game webcomic, why did you pick Crystal Heart?
That's a good question, because we are not the sort of people that would automatically go to, this is a thing that we did, everyone must want to know more about this. We assume no one wants to know anything about us at all. We want something that is cool and interesting and people might find engaging. And Crystal Heart is very comics-like. When we sat down and we thought we want to tell a long-form story, we immediately knew it wasn't going to be any established campaign world that already exists. Not because of licensing problems, but because we want to be able to tell something that is ours. And I have a problem. It's not a problem, but I really, really like world building and creating world rules and concepts that work well in creating specific stories. That's, I think, something that most GMs want.
Yeah, the only thing that I think I can add to this is that we already had something existing for Crystal Heart, and that is so much simpler than coming up with something out of the blue. It's just half the work is already done. We just need to pick it up from there. And I like that.
There's maybe an additional thing, actually, because I think I consider myself an educator in some way, and I would like more people to play better than they might be playing right now. And if I can in some way teach some of the lessons that I've learned and I think are useful and other people think are useful as well, that would be best. And if I can do so in a fun way using a comics, that will be even better. So for example, the whole concept of Crystal Heart, I think, shows how to avoid the murder hobo problem by using careful design method and concepts. And I think that as we go along and we show the whole point is that we show what happens around the table and what happens in game. And as we show this dissonance between the two things, we also talk a lot about how to solve the problems that arise naturally in any game or most games. And I hope it will be helpful. I'm not claiming we are the only people that know anything about role-playing games, but I think we know some things. And if we can help, especially new players, confront some of these problems and turn them into opportunities, that was the buzzword, that would be brilliant and good, I hope, for the hobby.
Yeah, I really want to get into that because that's one of the things that I love about this comic. But before we do, I think I want to talk a little bit about the way the comic is set up. And Aviv, I'm hoping you can talk to me about the visual aspect because it is a game that takes place in the world of Crystal Heart, but then there's also the real world players. And, you know, the comic is going back and forth between the two, and the two are interrelated, and we see dice rolls and we see things like that. What was it like getting the look down for the Crystal Heart world, and then also getting the look of the players down who are from the earlier strips that you were working on before Crystal Heart, right?
Yes, that's right. Which, again, made it simpler. We already had 4 main characters that we didn't need to design from scratch. They already even had a location that they usually play in, which is very vaguely based on Ev, my husband, and my house. Very convenient. And so then it was just a matter of designing and deciding about the look for the world of Crystal Heart. And that was a combination of trying to make something really colorful, really fun, drawing inspiration from superhero comics, from anime, which are also 2 of our inspirations for the story and the setting. From the other direction, trying to keep the style minimalistic, because I'm going to have to draw a new page every week. And it's not just a 3-panel strip, it's a full comics page. Turns out it takes longer. So as long as there aren't too many details and the lines are kind of streamlined and as simplified as possible, it makes it easier to draw it over and over again. When it's not my job, it's a kind of thing I do after hours. So you want to keep the workload as minimal as possible. One thing that is quite important visually is to keep to maintain the difference between in-game and around the table. And that has been made quite easy because the room they're sitting in is very bright yellow. They have a color scheme. They never change clothes. I hope they take showers, but that's outside of the scope of the comics, so we don't care about that. But they always look exactly the same. And the color schemes of what's happening in-game, they change all the time. So it's always like a steady anchor to go back to. So you're never confused about what you're looking at. There's the steady, around the table, normal people playing a game, and there's the crazy, adventurous, fantastic universe that's happening in-game.
But we also have the overlay shtick.
Yes, so one thing that's actually started when we did a very short role-playing arc in the old comic strips is how to show around the table when one of the players is speaking in character, because that happens and you sometimes want to see specifically that and not just that character speaking in game. So we created this kind of an overlay effect where you see the player character as you know them.
Wait, you don't see the player character. Oh, this is one of the problems. It's confusing. You see the character. You see the player who is a character in the comic. But
it's very, very confusing. You see the player with an overlay on top of them, just showing the main features of the character that they're playing with a kind of a colorful glow to differentiate it from the line art of the comic. And we think it works. Occasionally people are slightly confused about what's happening, but I try to make it as clear as possible that this is Nadav, the GM, but he now has weird hair and a weird smile and the color of the character that he's speaking as.
I think it makes a lot of sense because there's these colored outlines too around it. It's just really helps bring it forward, and I think is really interesting. And it also helps. One of the things that I love is that you didn't just say, we're going to give the player characters the look of the players that are playing them, right? Because one of the best things about a role-playing game is when I can step into, a big burly half-orc and I'm not a big burly man. And so I think that sort of helps. This idea of role-playing games is brought along in the comic, and I really love the overlays. I did not feel confused by them at all. And I thought they were just so clever and really interesting. And then the other thing that I love that you all are doing with the comics is you are teaching people rules for different role-playing game systems. So there are these interlude comics where, you might learn the rules of Savage Worlds, but you're learning them through comics. And it's such a fast and such a better way to learn for, I think, a lot of people, and more entertaining than just reading a wall of text that says, roll these dice when you do this thing and roll this when you do this. What is it like coming up with that? And why did you want to put them together in this format?
I mean, I can say for myself that I personally, I'm sure so many people prefer watching people play a game or listening to people play a game to understand how that game is being played. I might not understand all the rules, and if I'm going to run that game or get deep into playing it, I will have to read the rules. But if I want to get just an idea of how this game feels when it's run, I go to a podcast or I watch a live stream or whatever, and I see it in action. And that's kind of what we're doing with the comics, just in a much more condensed way that's very specifically geared towards teaching the rules.
We started doing this again with that short story arc that we had in our previous iteration using just the simple strips. And we had to explain the rules for Edge of the Empire by Fantasy Flight Games because that's what they were playing. And we are firm believers in when showing role-playing games, one should show the rules as well. It's not just a thing that happens. It's an integral part of the game. It influences our experience in profound ways. And you can't, I think, analyze or enjoy the full experience if you're not aware of the rules and what happens when you use and misuse them. So we had to explain them. But we are a comic. And at that time, we were just doing strips, weekly strips. No one was going to read about how to place Edge of the Empire. So we had to show them in comic. That's I think, was why we did that. And also we thought this is going to be quite awesome, probably useful for people that are running Edge of the Empire in conventions and maybe just can hand this 2-page comic to the players, and after 2 minutes, everyone knows how to play. And also, maybe Fantasy Flight Games will share this because it's the sort of thing they might like. And all of these things were true.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is actually how I learned the Edge of the Empire rules, was someone sent me this comic years ago. So yeah, I mean, it's impressive and it's really cool. And the thing that I also think is really interesting is, so when I'm looking at the rules comics, the ones where you're teaching Fantasy Flight Games and Fate and Savage Worlds, you have a different cast of characters, right? That are learning the game, but it's the same game master. Is that right? Am I interpreting that correctly?
Actually, we changed the game master because we wanted Rotem, who is a woman, to show a game as well. Nadav is our main GM, and that's fine. But for, I think it was Savage Worlds, we changed it.
I think this is Fate. Fate is the one that Rotem is GMing.
We did so many. No, actually, we only did 3. Each of these take about a month to create, and it's a lot of work. We've been approached by 2 companies to create. They asked how much it will cost to create, and it costs quite a lot of money because it's a lot of work, and I get why they didn't want it. It's a lot of money for 2 pages. It might seem like it's a nice to have. It's not It's not a thing you might want to include in your budget, and that's fair. No, but there's a reason we chose these specific characters in these comics, because they are way different from our regular players, and they are way more extreme in being for the rules, against the rules, and have no idea what the rules are about. These are the three characters. It's good because then you can switch them up between panels, and it's not only... And then when you read it, it might be entertaining, or at least surprising to read it. And so it's not boring. Next panel is always... You don't know what to expect in the next panel because you don't know who is going to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just such a great way to learn the rules. I really am in total agreement with you all about this. And I do think it's something more companies should look at. Certainly, people's time that it takes is worth something. And so that's something that needs to be budgeted. So when we're talking about the world of the Crystal Heart, when we're talking about Crystal Heart role-playing game, how are the rules going to be presented in the Crystal Heart book?
Words. We'll be using words, not comics. It's a rule book. It's a rule book. People will be going to read it. But we are taking inspiration from some of the Savage World settings, specifically 50 Fathoms, because we really like it. We're playing it these days, but also I just like how it showcases information, what sort of things it shows you. Basically, 50 Fathoms is condensed fun. Here are very simple, straightforward rules for fun with ships and magic. And here are half of the book. Here are a lot of fun things that can happen. That's sort of what we're looking for.
So what is, for people who don't know, what is 50 Fathoms? It sounds like you're taking a lot of the style and influence from that, but are there a lot of ships and magic and things in the world of Crystal Heart as well?
So 50 Fathoms is one of the earlier Savage World settings. It was revisited once or twice. We're playing the latest edition. It is about a world called Cardibus that is drowning. It's 50 fathoms because the land is now 50 fathoms beneath the waves. The world is really, really drowning. And people from Earth are being drawn into it, especially for some reason pirates and people from the golden age of sail. And it's all about sailing and pirates, but also magic and fantasy races. And it's a lot of fun. It's open worldish. Nothing of what I've just said has anything to do with Crystal Heart. We're only taking inspiration in the general sense, not in the thematic sense, not in the concept, because Crystal Heart is basically a game about agents going through, at first, a specific route, which is a series of adventures that, as players, they have very little to say about. You're going to play this adventure, and now you're going to play this adventure. And even more so, we are encouraging an episodic approach, like in our comic, where you ignore most things that happen on the day-to-day life. While in many D&D adventures, you might want to play the traveling phase, even if it's, oh, we sit around the campfire, and now we're moving, and now we have random encounters, and now we're at a city, and now we're in the market, and we buy stuff. In Crystal Heart, you will probably end an adventure. Next time, you will start the next adventure. And it might be 2 months afterwards and sample essays or whatever, because it's not that each episode stands on its own. We just think that looking at it as an action series, action adventure fantasy series, is probably just more fitting of the concept, the theme that we have for this world. The vision.
Hey everybody, just wanted to take a break to let you know that this episode of Tabletop Babble is brought to you by Kobold Press. Kobold Press, makers of amazing game products like the Midgard campaign setting, which is filled with dark fantasy for 5th edition. Midgard Sagas is a new collection of 5th edition adventures from Kobold Press, set in the dark fantasy world of Midgard. The book contains adventures for characters from levels 3 to 8, all of them designed to be played in 4 to 6 hours, packed with action. Plus, you can set this in Midgard, which I highly recommend because Midgard is amazing, but you could also use these adventures in any dark fantasy world. They are really awesome. Players will fight their way through clockwork guards to save a city from a mad saboteur, execute a daring heist at a posh nightclub, explore the ruins of an ancient elven city, avert war with the dust goblins of the wastelands, battle a brain-eating menace from outer space, and so much more. Visit koboldpress.com to learn more. You can buy Midgard Sagas right now on the Kobold Press website. That's koboldpress.com. Tell them DSPN sent you. All right, back to the show. That brings me to my next question, which is why Savage Worlds? Why use the Savage Worlds rule set and not another rule set? What was it about Savage Worlds that seemed right for Crystal Heart?
When we started thinking about systems to play this game in, obviously the first one that came up was D&D, but we ruled it out pretty quickly because D&D is very specific to what it does, and it's not Crystal Heart. So as much as we love D&D, go play. We do. We really do. And definitely, if wizards shared our stuff, that would be awesome. So we kind of narrowed the list to two main options. One was Savage Worlds, and the other was Fate Core, which we later did the 2-page comic, the Ready to Roll, to explain the rules of. Fate Core is really open and it's really interesting. I think the two main reasons that we ended up not going with it is if I remember correctly, Eran, you weren't completely sure about the rules when we set out with the comic.
I wasn't comfortable enough in playing with the system that I only know a lot about and haven't yet played a lot of.
That's right. And the second thing, which is more important, Fate Core is very open and very storytelling based. So if we picked that system, what would we show happening around the table? Just people talking about what's happening in the game? Then we can just tell a story that happens in the game and be done with it. We don't need to show around the table if nothing mechanically interesting is happening there. Savage Worlds, first, we both know it fairly well. We've played it before. There's a lot happening mechanically, lots of dice being rolled, rules that are simple but exist, and the game needs them to exist. It's super simple, not super simple, but it's definitely simple. And the tagline of the game is fast, furious, fun. And hello, yes, that is what we're doing. The pulpy adventure that the system works best with is exactly the kind of thing that Crystal Heart does. So it was kind of a match made in heaven.
For a time, I really wanted to do Crystal Heart in Powered by the Apocalypse thing, because I adore most of these systems. And Dungeon World is... So I started imagining crystals as moves, etc. But then again, what Aviv said, and we were helped by a lovely person called Lloyd, who sat with us 2 conventions ago. It's Dragon Meet. It's the main convention, RPG convention of London, 2 years ago. And we said, what do you say, Lloyd? Savage Worlds or something else? And he said, no, of course not something else, because Dungeon World or Fate are tools that allow players to tell a story, and that's great. But you want to tell the story, not your players. And I think it's really the right way to go. We would like to have a system that has more simulation and action and stuff than actually telling the story where to go and how to go. We want control over that. It is still, in its core, actually, a story that we are telling. It's about role-playing, but it's our story, so we have to keep it tamed.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I think is really fascinating about this is when I was reading the comic, I was like, oh, in D&D, this would be really, we'd be on comic strip 48 and we'd have 2 combat encounters at this point and that'd be it, So there really is something about the pacing of Savage Worlds, and Savage Worlds also has, with its exploding dice, potential for very unexpected dramatic moments that you can reveal and seem realistic. Like there's this interesting thing going on in the comic where you can create these crazy things that happen. And it's like, if you were just telling a story without a role-playing game framework, you'd be like, well, how does that happen? But when you can see the dice rolls, you're like, oh yeah, I've experienced this. I know what this is like when sometimes the dice just go crazy and you're like, well, I guess this is happening now. This is the way the story is going because this is what the dice say. And I love that you're able to do that in your story, and everything seems to work very well. Everything seems to flow together. The idea of like the game mechanics and the story and the game world and the real world, it all just works really well together. And it's clear you're putting a lot of work into this. And so I'm excited to check out the role-playing game because I feel like just as much love is going into that and just as much passion and enthusiasm. And so when I look at the role-playing game, I have some questions about my heart being replaced with a crystal so I get superpowers. Is that a thing players can do? And if so, can I swap out crystals? Like if I need a different superpower that day, can I rip one crystal out of my chest and put another one in? How does that work?
Yes. There are definitely complications with removing your own heart and placing a different heart in place of it. But yes, that is the whole point. You can change crystals on the go if you want. It will be difficult, but that's part of the fun. Or if you have some time to spare and you can do it in, an orderly fashion, then that's even easier. And part of the fun with the crystals is that they don't only give you superpowers, they also give you all kinds of personality quirks. So you're not only getting used to a bunch of completely new abilities, you're also now getting used to being super obsessive about something, or having paranoid thoughts, or completely losing your attention and just everything is exciting. And I think that's awesome to play with. And it's completely open for players who don't want to do that. If you just want to stick with your heart, with your crystal, you want to stick with your personality, that's completely fine. And you can even try new things with your crystal. You're not only confined to the powers that it comes with. But if you want, every session, a new crystal, new powers, new personality, that's completely fine. And that's part of the fun of the world.
When we started this, it was obvious to me that people are going to change crystals on a semi-regular basis. Like when you finish an adventure or two adventures, you've found a crystal or two, you're curious about them, they're cool, you want to have new powers, and you want to have the new personality disorders that come with them, because it's fun, you want that. So it was obvious to me that people are going to change them. But then during playtesting, we discovered that there are players that wanted to just have the crystal forever. They really like Crystal X. They like what it does and what it gives them. This is the sort of character they want to play. And I was surprised, but there were enough of them that we decided, yes, okay, it's a legitimate way to play. So we created some edges, which are like the Savage World feats, that fit this style of play, and edges that reward a different style of play, where you change them on the fly all the time. Because that's the thing of our world. You have crystals, the choice what to do with them is the thing that we should probably focus on. So that's what we are going for.
Excellent. So what sort of challenges are people facing in this world? This world clearly has a fantasy bent to it. What are people doing? Are they interacting with, dragons? Are there werewolves? Are there evil politicians? What does it look like?
Well, first of all, everyone is human. We don't have races. We think humans are problematic enough as they are. I mean, there are so many types of human. We have proto-nations, we have ethnicities, we have all of this, and there's more than enough trouble that can just rise up out of this starting point. And we don't have fantastical monsters, although we do have fantastical beasts. Like, for example, when we want to have a new monster, we take some creature from our world, You make it very big, or maybe put it in some other situation that probably wouldn't normally be in, or we influence it by some crystal, because crystals in the wild, feral crystals, have this sort of like radiation thing where they influence everything around them and make it corrupted, which is a bad word. It's not actually corrupted. It's the word we'll be using because we want the players to think of it this way, but it just changes, it mutates in some way. So, for example, we have really, really big moles that jump out of you from underwater because they're underwater moles. And we have a gigantic squirrel, which is called a white horse because people ride it. And in the land where they ride it, they don't have squirrels, no horses. So this is a white horse, and that's fine. And that's what we're going with, mostly because we don't want the classic things. You can have them if you want them. Say that a crystal created it and put it in, and that's it. But this should be a world on its own, probably. And there's more than enough things going on in the real world that we can use. Just exaggerate them in some way and push them out. But I think that actually the thing that players are going to face most of all is probably Sin, the organization they belong to. It doesn't seem like it's going to be the rival from the get-go. It's like the cohesion. It's the reason we are together. For any adventuring party should have a reason we are together. This one is you all belong to this organization. You are all agents of this organization. Sure. But there is a relationship going on between you and the organization. There's no money in the game because Sin provides everything. So if you want something, you get a requisition roll instead. And if you are doing well, you'll get bonuses to that roll. And if you are not doing well, that crystal that you wanted, it's currently unavailable because some other agent in some other land just got it. And you are not, maybe work a bit more, maybe show us that you can actually do the thing that a Sin agent is expected to do. And there are some responsibilities. And then we'll rethink about requisitioning the crystal, etc. And the main thing I think I like about Sin is we at no point reveal what they are trying to do and why. They are just a huge organization, mysterious and powerful, and everyone so far, readers and playtesters, are fine with it. They don't need the big details to be convinced that there's a reason for the organization to exist and for them to be agents of it. Which is excellent because now GMs can do whatever they want with it. And we'll obviously have some options in the rulebook. Although there is also the canonical version that will be revealed in the comic later on.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, that's great. It's lovely to have the option when you get the rulebook to sort of have the greater broad strokes of something, but, then strip out any details you want and change it yourself. And so it sounds like that is exactly what we've got here with this organization. And I'm wondering, is there, so we've talked a lot about crystals and changing crystals and that sort of thing. How does that work exactly? Like, is this a surgical procedure? Am I swallowing a crystal and then, I don't know, pooping one out? Like, what is how do we get one crystal into a body and another out?
Around your table, you're free to experiment with eating and pooping them out. That'd be, let us know how that went. There is a surgical procedure. It's done just once when you join Sin. You basically get your heart, your stony little heart, taken out and a harness installed inside your chest. And that harness is basically like an empty tube into which crystal containers are inserted and then twisted nicely, and they're stuck there. And once the container with the crystal is in your harness inside your chest, it regulates your blood. It does everything a heart should do. And you get all the crystal benefits, and maybe benefit is not the correct word, all the crystal effects. And that makes it really easy to just twist out the container, take it out, put in another one. For those few seconds, you don't have a heart, so good luck with that. But other than that, it's really quite simple. Anyone with a bit of a healing skill can do it really easily. Even you can, if you really want to, just twist, take it out, put another one in.
If you're doing it yourself or during combat or other stressful situation, there is a role for it, and you might start choking and dying. Otherwise, it's straightforward. The main problem is having the crystal and getting used to the crystal, probably. But there's also another thing that I think most people don't realize. They think the harness is named after probably the crystals. Like it's the harness, it allows you to harness the crystal. That's not exactly it. It's the harness that Sin puts on you. You now belong to them. You no longer have a heart. You only have crystals that Sin provides you with a harness that Sin maintains for you. And that's a thing.
Yeah, it's you don't want to lose your healthcare coverage, right? That's sort of what that is. It reminds me of that scene in the first Iron Man movie when he's changing the little reactor out of his chest and needs the help of Gwyneth Paltrow to sort of get everything right. And his heart isn't, like it sounds like there are some awesome, dramatic, tense moments you can have if somebody is sort of on the fly trying to change a crystal by themselves or with the help of, one friend in the middle of the woods or something.
Definitely. We're aiming for that, yes.
That's excellent. And then how quickly does that personality change take over? Is it like you install it and now all of a sudden you've got this new obsession? Does it take a while to develop? How does that work?
It's immediate. And the thing is that the crystal, well, we need to get a bit metaphysical. Your heart in this world is not flesh and blood, it's a stone, and it's created by your thought patterns and experiences and whatever. It's like a stone in a river. It is molded by the river, but it also pushes the river aside. So your specific worldview, not your opinion, but maybe how your mind works, is set in stone, Stagadish. And when you replace it with the crystal has a different shape. It has a different color. It has different whatever. So basically what is happening, the disposition, the thing that it influences you with, is simply a way for the river of thought to flow differently. So it happens immediately. From now on, this is how you think. Everything is filtered through this new perspective. That's how you interpret that. It completely depends on the player. Do with it what you want. In our group, for example, I don't give bennies for hindrances, which is a basic thing that you're supposed to do in Savage Worlds, because I don't care enough. I don't care keeping track of if you play well or just do your thing, have fun. If you enjoy your hindrance, excellent. Then use it. Then we'll enjoy it as well. You'll get Benny either way, in other ways, etc. So for my table, hindrances are there only for players, not for the GM, not to signal you, not as a gaming aspect.
Yeah, it's more about the story for you at your table than it is as far as hindrances go. Play them because they're fun to play. So people can right now subscribe to your email for free and get the starter set, right? For Crystal Heart. And then the full Kickstarter is happening on November 20th, which may already be happening by the time you're listening to this podcast. So if people want to get in, they should go to Kickstarter, search for Crystal Heart, and they will be able to find this. They could also go to, I'm sure, up4players.com and get information there. What do people get when they contribute to this Kickstarter?
So obviously the main reward is the setting book itself, which is going to have all the rules for crystals, everything mechanic you need to play, and loads of information about the world, about Sin, about the people you can meet, about the creatures you can meet, loads of crystals that you can play with. That's the main point of the Kickstarter. In addition to that, you'll also be able to get some of the comic products. We sell the books after we finish a chapter, we print it and we sell it, but only in local conventions. So not many people can get them. So the Kickstarter is a good opportunity to get the books, we have really cool dice trays that we've printed for Crystal Heart. We have stickers that are definitely my thing, but I'm really excited about them. So that's all going to be available as part of the Kickstarter, because if we're going to do shipping around the world, let's ship all of our stuff. In addition, so one of the exclusive rewards is people will be able to design the heroic tier of the Sin organization. So there are a select few heroic agents in Sin, which are badass people, just really high up, and they're all amazing, and they have amazing crystals and amazing experiences and life stories. And people will be able to design those characters and will create and illustrate them in the book, which is pretty cool. Stretch goals wise, we're really hoping to unlock deck of cards that comes with a lot of Savage Worlds setting books, which includes both, an actual deck of cards where in Savage Worlds combat, you don't roll for initiative, you draw cards. So if you get a higher card, you're first on the initiative. We want to produce those cards in the Crystal Heart theme and style, and we want the royalty of that card deck to feature those cool heroic agents. That would be really awesome, and I can't wait for that. And in addition, there's the whole other deck of cards, the adventure cards, which I thought was such a cool idea when we first started playing with them in Savage Worlds. It's 52 cards that each has a small story idea, adventure idea, something that happens during the game. And every player draws 2 of them at the start of the session, and you can use one whenever it seems like a good place in the story. So one of them could be, this NPC is actually a longtime friend and he owes me a favor. Another one can be, oh, look what I found in my pocket. I have just the tool I need for the job. And it just adds so much coolness to every session. And we really want to make a deck like that for Crystal Heart.
That's excellent. Well, this is awesome. You definitely have at least my dollars from coming on and doing this podcast. So I can't wait to check out Crystal Heart. For people who want to know more about you and find you all on the internet, where should they go and what should they do? And let's start with you, Eran.
I am available on the interwebs, mostly under the name Nesk. Nesk, that's my @ in Twitter and on Facebook and on Google+, as long as we have Google+. And I'm also available at eranaviram.me, which is my professional website as an editor and writer, and also on the shoulders of dwarves on dwarfcast.net. That's my RPG podcast. It's been running for 5 years in Hebrew, and now we switched to English about a year ago. About specific topical advice about specific topics regarding all sorts of tools and stuff that you can use as a player or as a GM.
And where can people find you, Aviv?
AvivOr.com, AVIVOR.com is my professional website. AvivOr@gmail.com is my professional email. But I'm always available to chat on Twitter. That's @AvivOr. I'm very simple with my names. Very easy. AVIVOR, just look for it wherever.
Well, thank you so much for coming on here and for chatting with me today. Really appreciated having you on Tabletop Babble. Great interview. That is awesome. They totally have my money and dollars for Crystal Heart. Incredible. Tabletop Babble needs your help to grow. Head on over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. If you do, I will read it out loud and credit the person who left it. You have no idea how much this helps us grow. Please, even if you don't have an iTunes account currently, sign up for free and rate us and all of the other podcasts you love. They will really, really appreciate it. All right, people, if you want to learn more about me and what I'm doing, I'm at twitter.com/James Introcaso, and I'm at worldbuilderblog.com. Tabletop Babble is a show on the Don't Split the Podcast Network. Thanks to Rudy Basso for founding it with me. Our theme music, which you're listening to right now, was provided by Battle Bards. Don't forget that RPGs are like sex. There is no wrong way to enjoy them.
I'm Lisa Chen, and I host Behold Her, a monthly podcast that shines a spotlight on women in the world of tabletop games. There are so many women to behold in this amazing hobby, and our experiences as female gamers are as diverse as we are as individuals. Through one-on-one interviews, audio essays, and panel discussions, all centered around a monthly theme, the guests on Behold Her share their unique stories as players, game masters, designers, artists, organizers, and so much more. Their words are inspiring, uplifting, and informative. Check out Behold Her Podcast wherever podcasts are found, or visit beholdherpodcast.com.